Let's bring in Congressman Brian Mast. He's a retired Army Staff Sergeant. He served in Afghanistan. He's on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee as well. Congressman, great to have you with us this morning. We were talking about the role of Jack Dorsey. I think when talking about Twitter, and then by extension when talking about Jack Dorsey, we have to talk about the times that he said what we now know was happening at Twitter was not happening. And some of those statements from Dorsey took place in front of Congress. He said, we are not shadow banning, which I think then brings the question to anybody sitting in Congress. What can you do about that lie?
So one, the question to what can Congress do about it depends on whether he was subpoenaed under oath or whether he was just testifying, giving his own opinions. There's a literal distinction there when it comes to the House of Representatives. But is Congress and probably the Energy and Commerce Committee really going to hold Twitter to account for this? 100%. They were the biggest headquarters of posers anywhere. They were pretending to be a town hall when really they just wanted to be an echo chamber, and they could care less about anybody's 5 fundamental freedoms. If you wanted to exercise freedom of religion, they were going to say that that was hate speech. They weren't interested in you being able to petition the government. They were going to, as Twitter, petition the government to try and silence people, or let the government petition them and then acquiesce to them to silence people like President Trump and others. They weren't interested in free speech or anything else related to our fundamental freedoms. And I'd put them right up there with Bernie Madoff or FTX or Enron. They were fraudulent. And thank God Elon Musk came in and said he's going to stop the charade, stop the masquerade, and he's going to make them authentic.
Yeah, otherwise we wouldn't know any of this. To your point, here's another thing we may not be aware of. Here's part of the release, the Twitter files from Matt Taibbi. He tweeted this. He said, this post about the Hunter Biden laptop situation shows that Roth not only met weekly with the FBI and DHS, but with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. This is where these revelations get dangerous if the government was putting its thumb on the scale or implying or suggesting to a private company to do their bidding on censorship.
So this is very, very serious for Congress. I'm giving you my opinion right now of what I think took place. I don't think that FBI Director Wray was making this phone call. I don't think that DNI Radcliffe, who was a member of the House, was in there making these phone calls saying, hey, go out there and do this. I think you're talking about people somewhere in middle management that absolutely abused their power, abused their title, call it, hey, I'm from the FBI. I'm tasked with doing this. Twitter, we need you to go out there and do this. They were entirely out. We know they were entirely outside of the scope of what they should have been doing, but we have to believe that they were doing this in a very fraudulent way, and that there should probably be charges for individuals that were taking away the most fundamental law of the land. This should be the most important law, and that would be, our First Amendment rights of our Constitution, utilizing their power to do so.
Well, and Congressman, you're talking about freedom. I mean, you've sacrificed greatly for this country. You're willing to lay down your life for this country. How free of a country are we still?
You talked about it as you were, coming in on the intro. Everything is used to say, hey, we can make you safer, but we have to erode this freedom and this freedom and this freedom. We have to, look at your phone calls. We have to have the freedom of information, using the Patriot Act to be able to take anything that we want out of your emails or other places. We have to have secret courts to be able to go out there and look at people like President Trump or others, but you're never going to get to know anything about it. You have to have all this secret stuff to protect you. But really, think about why the Constitution exists. It exists to protect we the people from the government. That's why it has to exist, but it's being used to do the opposite.
So we wanted to get you in on this as well this morning, Congressman. As you know, as everyone watching knows by now, that Brittany Griner, WNBA player, was returned from Russia in exchange for the Merchant of Death. That's the name known to Victor Bout, an international arms dealer who helped everyone from child soldiers in Africa to Mexican drug cartels find their weapons of choice. Tom Pescarello, he's a former DEA agent, was on earlier with Pete. Here's what he had to say about that exchange.
We've got splinter groups throughout the world that are taking Americans hostage that are now going to be using this as a bargaining chip, and it sets precedent. So what I think we need to discuss is really, was that the best bang for the buck that the United States had by an individual like Victor Bout, who was convicted by a jury in New York, conspiracy to kill Americans, providing weapons of mass destruction to a terrorist organization. And the best that could come from this is one American that was being held wrongfully in Russia in return. It just doesn't make sense.
Congressman, what do you make of the trade?
He hit the nail on the head right there, right? So one, happy to have any American back on American soil. We don't leave our people behind. That includes Marines. We don't leave them behind either. But yeah, you set this precedent where you're going to say individuals of no particular national security significance will be traded for high-level detainees. And this at a time that we're arming the Ukraine to the tunes of billions of dollars, left billions of dollars of arms and equipment in Afghanistan. But hey, let's release a Russian arms dealer. Are we just trying to even the playing field or something? It doesn't make any sense. And you go beyond this and you say, let's do maybe a multiple choice. Brittany Grenier was released, A, because it was a really good deal, B, because we were doing something to accomplish national security, or C, because this was a situation of politics. And I think most Americans will say this was C, this was politics, and it was worse for America.
Yeah. Well, good moment for America yesterday. Real quick, Army beats Navy. First overtime game in 123 games. You got to be happy, right? I know I am.
Pete, I knew that's where you were going. When you said good moment for America, right? I always harass my staff to be like, oh, nice blue blazer. I said, it's not navy blue, it's blue.
Yep, in 2 overtimes, Army beat Navy last night in just a wonderful display of patriotism. You're a patriot, Congressman. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks
Take
for
care,
having me.
Congressman. Thank you.
Good to see you.